Echoes of the dead. The first time Mara heard the knocking, she thought it was memory. It came softly, 3 deliberate taps, muffled as though filtered through water or soil. She lay still in her childhood bedroom, staring at the faint crack of light beneath the door, her breath shallow. The house was supposed to be empty, had been empty for 7 years. Yet the sound came again. Knock, 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 not on the door. From the wall behind her bed, Mara squeezed her eyes shut and told herself it was stress, grief, the mind replaying old fears in familiar places. She had returned to Hollow Creek to sell the house after her mother's death. Would do nothing more. 1 night, maybe 2. Then she'd leave this town and its rotting quiet forever. But the wall knocked again, harder this time, and something on the other side listened when she held her breath. Hollow Creek had not changed. The trees still leaned inward, branches twisting like hooked fingers over the narrow road. Fog crept low along the ground even in daylight, clinging to ankles, swallowing sound. The town's name came from the creek that once ran through it, now dried to a cracked scar in the earth. Its bed filled with stones no one remembered placing. People used to say the creek never truly dried. It only learned how to hide. Mara grew up hearing stories. Whispers traded between adults when they thought. Children weren't listening. Of voices near the water at night. Of echoes that answered when no one had spoken. Of the dead who didn't know they were gone and kept calling home. Her father had laughed those stories away until the night he walked into the woods and never came back. They found pieces of him weeks later. Not enough to bury. The knocking stopped just before dawn. Mara did not sleep. When the first grey light seeped through the curtains, she forced herself to sit up and press her ear to the wall. Cold plaster, no sound, no vibration. She laughed shakily, hating herself for the relief that followed. In the kitchen, dust lay thick on every surface. The air smelled of old paper and something faintly sweet, rot or mildew. She couldn't tell. As she poured stale coffee down the sink, she noticed wet footprints on the linoleum, small ones. Pa! They led from the hallway to the back door, then stopped. Mara tried to leave that morning. She packed her bag, loaded her car, and turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. Her phone showed no signal. No bars, no emergency calls. Of course, she muttered, gripping the steering wheel too tightly. Hollow Creek had always been a dead zone. She told herself she'd walk into town, find a mechanic, get it sorted. As she stepped out of the car, she heard her name, Mara. The voice was soft, strained, familiar. Her mother's voice. Mara froze. Her mother had died 3 weeks ago in a hospital 3 states away. She had held her hand as the machines went quiet. Mara, please, the voice called again from somewhere beyond the trees. Against every instinct she followed. The woods behind the house were denser than she remembered. The path she once ran along as a child was gone, swallowed by undergrowth. The deeper she went, the quieter the world became. No birds, no insects. Even her footsteps seemed muted, as though the ground absorbed sound. Mara, the voice whispered closer now. She pushed through a curtain of vines and emerged at the creek bed. It should have been dry. It wasn't. Black water pooled in the center, thick and unmoving, reflecting no sky. The stones lining the bed were smooth and pale, arranged in neat spirals that made her stomach twist. She didn't remember them being there. At the water's edge stood her mother, or something that wore her face. Her skin was too tight, stretched thin over bone. Her eyes were sunken, glossy, reflecting Mara in 1,000 fractured pieces. When she smiled, her mouth opened too wide. "You came back," it said, voice layered with others beneath it, men, women, children. "I missed you." Mara stumbled backward. "You're not real." The thing tilted its head. "None of us are. Not anymore." The water rippled and hands broke the surface. Dozens of them. They reached upward, fingers clawing at the air, wrists covered in old yellowed bandages. Faces followed, bloated, broken, familiar in terrible ways. People from town. People from photographs. People Mara remembered attending funerals for. And people she didn't remember burying. "Come home," they whispered together. Mara ran. She didn't remember the path back, only the sound that chased her, the echo of footsteps that didn't match her own, the wet slap of flesh on stone, the overlapping voices calling her name in every tone imaginable. She burst through the back door of the house and slammed it shut, jamming a chair beneath the handle. Her chest burned. Her throat tasted like blood. The knocking started again. Not the wall this time. The basement door. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, patient. Mara backed away, heart hammering. The basement had always terrified her. Even as a child, she'd sworn something lived down there. Her parents told her it was imagination. They told her the same thing when she heard voices at night, rising through the floorboards like breath through soil. The door creaked open. The smell hit her first. Damp earth, decay, something coppery and old. The light flickered, and shadows moved where nothing should have been. "Mara," a man's voice said gently. Her father's voice. She sank to the floor, sobbing. "Stop it." Footsteps climbed the stairs. A shape emerged from the darkness, tall and wrong. Her father's face sagged on his skull, eyes milky, jaw hanging at an unnatural angle. His neck bore a deep blackened groove, as though something had wrapped around it and pulled tight. "You left us," he said, accusation and longing tangled together. "You heard us calling and you left." Behind him, the basement shifted. The walls pulsed, flesh replacing concrete. Veins snaked along the ceiling. The floor squelched beneath unseen weight, and everywhere were bones. Stacked, embedded, arranged carefully, lovingly. A house built on the dead. "Why?" Mara whispered. Her father smiled, teeth clicking softly. "Because the creek gives back what it takes, and Hollow Creek takes everyone eventually." Hands grabbed her ankles. She screamed. Mara woke up in her bed. Morning light streamed through the window. Birds chirped outside. For a moment, hope bloomed, fragile and desperate. Then she noticed the dirt under her fingernails, the bruises around her ankles, and the faint sound of running water beneath the floor. She bolted upright and ran to the bathroom mirror. Her reflection smiled, a heartbeat too late. Behind her in the glass, figures crowded close, faces pressed against the surface from the other side, mouths opening and closing in silent screams. The mirror cracked, spiderweb fractures spreading outward, and something bled through. "Mara," they whispered, "you belong to us now." She fled the house again, ignoring the pain, the exhaustion, the certainty that she was running out of time. The town was closer than she remembered, or maybe the house had moved. Buildings leaned at odd angles, windows dark. No cars, no people. At the town square stood the old church. Its doors were open. Inside, candles burned, though no one tended them. The pews were filled, not with living bodies, but with shadows that shifted and breathed. At the altar stood a man Mara barely recognized, the sheriff. He looked older than she remembered, thinner. His badge was tarnished, his eyes hollow. "You should have stayed away," he said quietly. "What is this place?" Mara demanded. "What happened here?" The sheriff sighed. "The creek. Years ago, the town needed water. We dug deeper, found something old. Something hungry?" Images flooded her mind. People disappearing. Accidents, bodies found drained and twisted. The town feeding the creek to keep it satisfied. Cover-ups, lies. And when it wasn't enough, he continued, it started taking on its own. Mara shook her head. "Then burn it. Destroy it." The sheriff smiled sadly. "You can't kill a hunger. You can only feed it." The shadows rose from the pews, moving toward her. "And it knows your voice now." The creek roared behind her as she stood at its edge, the black water churning, alive. The dead gathered on the banks, watching, waiting. Her mother stepped forward, face softer now, almost kind. "It won't hurt anymore," she promised. "You'll never be alone again." Mara looked into the water and saw her future, endless dark, endless voices, her own echo joining the chorus. She thought of the life she'd built away from Hollow Creek, the friends, the laughter, the sunlight. She stepped back. "No," she said. The creek screamed. The dead surged forward, furious. Hands grasped her, dragging her toward the water. She fought, nails tearing skin that felt like wet clay. And then, silence. The ground shook. The water recoiled, pulling inward, collapsing on itself. The stones lining the creek shattered, releasing a sound like 1,000 voices crying out at once. The dead froze. Mara fell backward, gasping. The creek dried in seconds, leaving only cracked earth and bones. The figures around her screamed as they collapsed into dust. When it was over, Hollow Creek was gone. Mara woke in a hospital bed. Sunlight streamed through clean windows. Machines hummed softly. A nurse smiled when she opened her eyes. "You're lucky," the nurse said. "Hikers found you near an abandoned town, dehydrated, hypothermic." "Is it gone?" Mara asked hoarsely. The nurse frowned. "What is?" Mara closed her eyes. Weeks later, she returned to her life. She told no one what happened. Some nights she still heard knocking, distant and faint, but it never came closer. Until one evening, as she lay in her apartment, she heard water running where there was no pipe. And from the wall behind her bed, knock, 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 the echoes had followed her home. And this time they knew exactly where she lived.